Well, we'll have to try not to cry.
Me included. Oh, okay. My name is Patti Lamar, and I met Dr. Witcher on January the 25th of 2022. He had just come back from the frontline doctors standing on the Capitol steps doing that big presentation that nobody wanted to listen to. Nobody wanted to believe that they knew what they were talking about. I had done a lot of research, and I had started with Dr. Sarah Tenpenny, who made me realize no vaccines for me and my family. And so time rocked on, but Dr. Witcher came to my rescue. My husband got sick on the 24th, and he had to. We were not vaccinated. We had ivermectin. We had vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, quercetin. We had the whole 9 yards, and we were taking it for the full year before this happened. But what I wasn't prepared for was for Ray's oxygen level to drop to 67. And I only bought the little finger thing that night, and I thought it was broken. I put it on my finger, and it was 98, and I knew we were in trouble. So we go to the little emergency room in Hazelhurst, where Dr. Witcher was on staff there, right, in the ER for a little bit.
Yeah, I had worked there previously.
Right, but not then. But anyway, so I didn't want to let him go. I didn't want to, but I had to because he couldn't breathe. So I wrote on his arm in a black Sharpie on both front arms because I knew I couldn't get in. I wrote no vent, no remdesivir. And I wrote my name and my phone number on his arm. And I sat out in the parking lot in the rain, begging God. So, okay, wait, we can't cry yet. Okay, so then, I just knew that he would be okay, but the doctor in the emergency room called me, and he said he has COVID pneumonia in both lungs and a strep infection, and I need to keep him. And I said, okay, well, y'all, I'll come get him tomorrow. And he said, he laughed, he chuckled, and he said, no, he's going to be here for a while. Well, I knew what that meant. So then my friends, my cousin, who was Dr. Witcher was taking care of at the time, gave me Brooke's phone number. And the next morning, I had talked to the doctor who was taking care of Ray. He was a member of our local, our doctor's office. And so he called me, and I talked him into letting me stay in the room with Ray on the COVID floor that day. And so I was there. I called Brooke. She gave me Dr. Witcher's number. I texted him. He called me back, and he said, you get down there and you FaceTime with me. He didn't know me from Adam's house cat. And he was tired. He had been traveling, and he was working. But he took the time to spend most of the morning on FaceTime with Ray and me. Two people he had no idea, and we were already in a hospital. And he said to me, don't let them give him this, don't get the Xanax, don't get the, no pain pills, nothing. It'll suppress his breathing, and he'll be in trouble. And so he got on FaceTime with Ray, and he encouraged Ray, don't let him do this. Well, Ray was on a rebreather, but when I got there, they had taken it out, and he was just on a cannula. And he was eating his lunch, and he was still in the shirt he came in the night before. He was looking great. But Dr. Witcher was all over me. He was like, no Xanax, no, nothing, this, that, and the other. Well, I kept telling the nurse, and it was making her madder and madder. She was so mad at me because I wouldn't let her give him anything for anxiety. And he was anxious, but, so what? So, anyway, what are you going to do, All right, so then this nurse comes in at 3:30 in the afternoon, and she looks me straight in the face. She lied through her teeth to me And she had already fussed at Dr. Witcher because Dr. Witcher was trying to get her to get the respiratory therapist to come in, and she just flat out told him, mind your own business, basically. And so anyway, she came in, she looked me straight in the face, and she said, I've got an order, finally got an order for something to give your husband that will not cause his breathing to be suppressed. And I said, fine, good, give it to him. And I was so nervous at that, and I wasn't nervous. I was a mess. So I told her to give it to him. Well, it turns out 2.5 hours later, his mouth turns black, his tongue is black, he's crazy in the head, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's thrashing around, he's fighting them. And I was standing there and I saw all this going on, and I was going to take a picture so I could send it to my children, my 2 grown boys, and they ran me out of the room. Next thing I know, this doctor, big as a door, he's standing at the foot of the bed. I don't know how I missed him, but he's screaming at me, come in, Miss Lamar, come back. And so I went back in there, and he said, you just going to let this man die? He's laying here, you got no vent on his arm, he needs a vent. And you just gonna let him die? Well, I mean, he was just like looking at me like, anyway, it was horrible. And I didn't have any choice. The poor man was laying there, his mouth was black, he couldn't breathe. And I didn't know what my choices were other than that. And he was, anyway, so I signed the papers and I let him take him to get vented. And I walked over to Ray, and I told him I couldn't tell him because we swore to each other we'd never let this happen. But it happened, and so then he looked up at me with that thing on, and I said, I love you. And I didn't tell him where they were taking him. I just said, they're going to take you to another room, and I'll see you in a little bit. And so anyway, I don't mean to make this go on and on. I just was standing there, and I thought, okay, well, he tried to kiss me through the plastic, and I was scared to take the plastic off, so I got my last little kiss from plastic, but, at least I got it. Some people didn't. But so anyway, they took him, and I was walking around the room, and I was crying, and I was praying, dear God, we're not through yet. Please don't take him. Just everything I could think of, and all of a sudden, just in my spirit, I felt this voice, and he said to me, it's okay, something good is going to come from this. And so I just stopped in my tracks, and I said, oh, good, he's going to get well, and he's going to have a testimony, and he's going to bring people to Christ. And I can just see it all now. I mean, I could just see it all. And so then he had to be transferred to a different hospital for ICU. And Dr. Witcher, he just kept after me. He kept saying, Patti, now you got to get in there now. You got to tell him he's got to have that ivermectin. He knew they weren't going to give it, but he still told me. And I mean, I was wearing them out. You got to give him the ivermectin. Nope, we don't do that. Well, so we rock on, and his kidneys, he was already on a blood thinner, so they had to stop that, and the man said the nurses were all great, unlike the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people that I've come to know since then. He had good nurses. But anyway, they took good care of him. But the first thing that happened was his pancreas and his liver started failing because his blood got too thin, and the things happened, and then all of a sudden his kidneys failed, and he had to go on dialysis, and I'm thinking, okay, this is not what we had planned on here. So then he had on a Saturday before he passed away, his blood pressure dropped in the heart and all the stuff, and they called us to come in, and so we all gathered around his bed, and first of all, I didn't want to took my mask off when I got in there so that I could go up and kiss my husband. And the head nurse came in and, you got to put that on. I said, no, I'm not putting it on because he's dying and I'm fixing to let him film. Now you're going to leave. He said, okay then, well, you're going to have to leave. And so then my son came over and said, put your mask on. So I put my mask on. But we stood around, and the longer we stayed, the better his numbers got. He stabilized. And so they made everybody got to leave after we'd been there for a while, and then they let me stay. So Dr. Witcher, the next morning, I called him and I said, they're going to let me come back in and visit. I think I had some of that dog and cat kind of ivermectin we'd been kind of rubbing in our skin, you know, a little bit, that clear stuff. And I said, can I go in there and put some of that on him? And he said, no, go to the Tractor Supply and get the horse paste, because it's more, it's concentrated, a little more concentrated, is that right? And he said, rub it in his feet. Tell the nurses you're just going to rub him with lotion. And I thought, dear God, this is the answer. And so that day, I got to talk to the doctor, and I finally convinced him to give him the FLCCC level of steroids. So I thought, okay, we got the steroids up, because Dr. Witcher kept saying, don't stop, you got to keep going, you got to keep going. Finally, I sent him a note, and I said, you tell me how to get a doctor to do something he doesn't want to do. You ought to know. You know, I don't think he answered me, but he kept on. He kept me going. And so I went in, and I thought we were going to have time. I rubbed the steroids in his feet. I mean, he gave him the steroids, and I rubbed the ivermectin in his feet. I got to do it on Monday. I got to do it on Tuesday. And on Tuesday afternoon, it was real sweet. I was rubbing him, and I was kind of doing all this. His face looked different that day. It was all like he had shrink wrap on his face, and I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know, but anyway, I was talking to him and just singing, and we were singing our Gaither gospel music, and all of a sudden this big fat tear just rolled out of his eye right here. And I just thought, what a gift God gave me to let me know that he could hear me, and that he was saying, I love you. I know it was. But anyway, so I had to leave, but I got stuff rubbed in his feet. And so the next morning at 5 o'clock, I was laying in the bed. I'd been praying for him for about 30 minutes. As soon as I said amen, and the phone rang. He had a heart event, and he died. So anyway, through all of this, Dr. Witcher, he referred me to a group. I know I just forgot something, but I don't know what it was now. But anyway, Dr. Witcher referred me to the former Feds group, Freedom Foundation. It has become a nationwide group that started with just a few people, and they have a group. We have a thing called COVID-19 Humanity Betrayal Memory Project. And Dr. Witcher had several people like me during that time of the year. It kind of got busy for you there for losing patients. All of us are in his group. And so he referred us all, and I think I'm probably the only one that kind of got into this thing. And he wanted us all to talk about our husbands and document our stories with this former Feds group, Freedom Foundation. And so I did that. And then I got involved with interviewing the people who are coming behind. And I've been interviewing since last year. I only got into it. And now we have nearly 1,000 stories from across America of people who have died from the hospital protocol remdesivir. Now, the thing that I want to tell y'all is that for a month after Ray died, I got his Medicare billing statement, and on that billing statement was a code that had a huge medical $sign beside it. And I couldn't find it anywhere, so I went then to get his medical records from the hospital, and I looked that number up that corresponded with the thing from the Medicare thing, and it had the number 96365. And so I got busy, and it took me 3 days, but I found on the internet that code number was remdesivir.
Wow.
They had given it to him right through his arm where I had written no remdesivir. But they did not notice, they did not put it on the bill. They never named it. They never named it, and we've got several people that we've interviewed, that I've interviewed myself, that they've done this to. Anyway, now I have the testimony. The Lord took Ray, and He has given me a purpose and a platform. And so part of my platform now is to turn around and thank you, and to do what I can to help you. Thank you so much. Anyway.
Thank you so much, Patty.
All right, thank you. So, Patti, Lamar, I mean, this is what's so upsetting, is that